Extreme pressure, obviously that's what you're dealing with, but climate is also under extreme pressure. And I wonder what the move to review this policy says about the government's commitment to climate change.
Well, the Minister of the Environment, Julie DeBruson, is working on a new climate competitiveness strategy. We believe that it is for us in our interest, not only, of course, to fight climate change, which is obvious, but also to reap the benefits of an industrial strategy linked to being able to be in clean tech. You know, when you look at the companies that are worldwide leaders in clean tech, many of them are Canadians. Actually, we're in the top 100, and we want to build them even more, and that's why
the Liberals' only plan to save the environment is to drive all of our business to America, and we need to talk about it. Welcome back to the Freedom Pines podcast. I'm your host, Jamie A.B. This is where we discuss and debrief politics, pop culture, internet culture from an independent perspective, and if that interests you, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and let's get into today's video, shall we? I don't know if I copied that thing from Elevate podcast, but my apologies. I keep not meaning to say it. If I copied you, Josh, I'm very, very sorry, okay? I heard you say shall we the other day. I'm like, oh my gosh, do I listen to Elevate so much that I say shall we because of them? I apologize, okay? This just happens since 2021. I don't know why. I do know why. So first of all, I would like to say if I was Rosemary Burton, I would have asked a bunch of other questions. Now, I am no journalist, okay? My goal here is to honestly discuss and debrief what we are seeing in our media, in our politics, and our internet, because I'm somebody who does have a lot of nuance takes, okay? I can see things from all points of view. I have that unfortunate gift. First of all, if I was Rosemary Burton, I would have said, okay, if the climate is in crisis, what are we doing with the carbon tax dollars that we get to help the environment? What are we doing? Are we building a national firefighting department? Are we buying more water bombers, building more water bombers? What are we doing here? How does collecting a tax save the environment? That would have been my first number one, okay? Then I would have asked what's taken so long to build these, you know, green energy projects that they've wanted to build this whole time. What's taken so long? You guys have had 10 years to implement the agenda that you wanted to implement. And by the way, my husband worked at Siemens Canada, which was the place that had the first wind turbine factory. My husband built those blades. It was honestly pretty cool at the time, especially because I was a lefty. And my husband was still a blue-collar worker doing the wind turbines. But anyways, we know that what that turns into is a massive graveyard of wind turbine blades that no longer can function, but there's nothing you can do with them because they're giant pieces of glass, fiberglass, woven within each other, okay? Same with like the lithium pits. We know that these green... a lot of the green things that they have said or the green options are not actually green, okay? We know the amount that they need for these batteries, for these electric vehicle batteries. We know that you can't replace, or, you know, when that battery is gone, it's gone. You might as well be replacing the car, and that's what people do, and we'll have large graveyards of electric vehicles, but that's if they really want us to own electric vehicles, right? Like, do they actually want us to be able to afford this or not? And then I would ask, what are the logistics for places like Northern Ontario? What does that look like? Okay, what does that look like for someone that has to travel 7 hours to see their families? What does that look like in the middle of winter? I'm just wondering if you expect families to, wait at the en routes for hours on end for their cars to charge? Is that the plan, or what's going to happen there? My next question would have been, why is there no tax breaks for families who don't go on a plane? Or why aren't there tax breaks for gardeners? Why aren't there tax breaks for communities who have more than one greenhouse that helps feed the community all year round? Where are these environmental saving projects that, you guys are so concerned about, okay? Like, why does it only have to be putting Canadians into poverty to save the planet? And then forcing them to have an electric vehicle, which, by the way, Rosemary Barton, if you did any lick of research, you would realize that these green options aren't so green. And by the way, what I was saying earlier is, why wouldn't they redo the contract with Siemens if they were so concerned about, having these options of green energy, Canadian made, albeit? Why? What happened to that? Why is the only plan to drive business to America for you guys to save the planet? What's the real plan here? How do we know that the investments that MarkCarney is making into these green projects aren't just him investing in his friends' businesses that he knows that he is invested in? None of that, Rosemary. Just, well, the climate's in crisis. Okay, so what are you doing about it? Are you going to northern places and seeing the devastation of these fires? Are you guys going to talk about the glypho that is sprayed, which, by the way, I think that they get away with saying that it's not flammable because in its solid form it's not, but then when it's turned into liquid to spray on our forests. And even in CBC's article the other day, a little couple questions for you, Rosemary. Why did you let CBC defend the fact that they are openly spraying this glypho so that companies can grow their products easier in Northern Ontario? Well, any northern place really where there's trees. Why is that? Why did you guys admit that it was a capitalistic venture as to why they're using glypho? Okay. Why didn't you mention anything that has to do with the environment and the environmental impacts that could potentially have? CBC has a convenient way of sticking up for CEOs or, the liberals having deals with CEOs when it's convenient for them, when it's, the people who are cashing their check. Why didn't you ask Melanie Joly to look into why we are spraying on a provincial level glypho over everything, and what are the environmental impacts of that? Who's going to ask these questions if not me, okay? Because I want to remind you guys, I'm here to debrief and discuss. I'm not a journalist. What we need, though, is people to debrief and discuss these things. So many times where I'm watching Mr. Sunshine Baby, I'm like, say something. Say something. What do you mean? How do you not even have a reaction to that? No shade. I'm just saying. A lot of people just kind of share and then don't share an opinion. I'm here to share my opinion, get your opinion. We're here to debrief and discuss because we don't get any debriefs in real life anymore. There is no discussion, no debriefs. Everybody fights all the time. And, I might be one of the contributors to that, but oh my gosh, when I tell you guys I was on the left and did not see a lick of the disrespect that and homophobia, all of the different things from the right, then when I'm on the right, I was pushed to the center, and now you guys are now doing things that are so unreal, especially when it comes to MAID, that I literally just I'm forced into this. Okay, I am forced into this because of the hatred for parents, the no bodily autonomy, okay? The left just doesn't look recognizable anymore. And I also recognize that when Stephen Harper was in, life was pretty decent and we were able to overcome a lot and no matter what, succeed, okay? So if you're wondering why I'm here, that's why I'm here. We are here to, I went to school to be a counselor, child and youth counselor, child and youth worker. Yeah. Anyways, that's what I went to school for. So that's why I can see things from every point of view. That's why I've never hated my conservative friends. That's why I've never hated my left-leaning friends. I can understand where everybody comes from, especially people in my life, because I know that certain things have happened to them or they've gone through certain things, during each governmental body, okay, that makes them the way that they are, or, they don't have kids, so many factors. But we can't do that anymore. That is not possible. The left in Canada pushes the mob mentality. That is, if you don't agree with me on these things, And often those things contradict each other. It is literally just, if you don't agree with what the media is telling us to agree with this week, then you're wrong. I have seen very minimal left-leaning content creators actually break from that mold and start criticizing MarkCarney. And they're even thrown under the bus for that, called all of these names like ableist, privileged, all of these different things for speaking against MarkCarney, unironically, okay? I also feel that our media is just not doing their jobs, not asking the real questions, not actually discussing the things that need to be discussed in our ever-failing economy and society. 66,000 jobs gone since MarkCarney. And I'm not smiling because I think it's funny. Where is the press about this? Where is everybody criticizing Carney? Because this was the one thing that he was hired to do, was to save our jobs, was to negotiate with Trump, was to fix this whole mess. He's the guy to do it. We're one of the only countries that don't have a freaking deal with Trump. So what's that about? I also don't know how we can effectively, if I was Rosemary, I'd be like, well, wait a minute. How do we save the environment if Trump and China aren't doing a single thing to help the environment? How much impact can we have putting our citizens into poverty so they can't afford anything, so they can't, use CO2? How much is that really doing? Is that really, I just think it's wild that in Canada, people even think that we have true capitalism when the Liberals have made sure that they have been enforcing these environmental laws like that, by the way, make no sense because we don't have plastic straws, but now instead of having cardboard cups or paper cups or whatever it was and a plastic straw and a plastic lid, now the whole cup is plastic and the straw is paper. By the way, you can get plastic straws from Dollarama. I suggest you get them, put them in the car, put them in your house, hide them, okay? You can still find that illegal activity happening in dollar stores. I appreciate Dollarama, okay? But this is what I mean. All of these useless things to encourage environmentalism, it blows my mind that the left cannot see that this is if not worse, because at least oil and gas people make really good money in oil and gas industries. Amazing money. It's just like, I will say, I think temporary foreign workers program is the only incentive to have Canadian businesses here. Do you think that that's not so messed up that they know that they can have literal SLAVE labor here? And that's the only reason why I think a lot of businesses still remain or are able to remain in Canada? There are a lot of things, like this didn't happen overnight. This was not Trump. All these businesses leaving Canada were bound to leave Canada already because of a lot of different things, where they're punished for heating and cooling their building, heating and cooling our food if they're a grocery store. The only ones that can survive the oligarchy are the ones that are the big box stores, the only ones that were allowed to be open during the panini press. Does that seem coincidental to anybody? How about we all call out the fact that our government shut down our businesses? This is what I mean. The narrative is crazy. The way that they can control the narrative in Canada is insane. They can make Donald Trump be enemy number one. I don't agree with everything Trump does either, but I also don't have Trump derangement syndrome where I think that he's the HITLER, okay? But I also don't think that he's the reason for the economic collapse of Canada. The Liberals have been doing everything they can to make sure that they de-incentivize businesses to come here because we in Canada have a God complex about the climate and our environment and our land and think that we are okay to exploit other environments, other parts of the world so that we don't have to touch ours. It's a-okay to get all of our gas and oil from other places and still rely on that, but God forbid we touch our land. Canada you know, if you're still here, may the odds be ever in your favor, guys. Okay? You guys tell me in the comments. Someone already said make things last for electronics and everything we use, vehicles, everything. If you really want the environment to be saved, make that a clause. Make sure that these people are making better quality things. I can see this all starting because I watched that 70s show, and the first season was talking about how Red came back from the war or whatever, and all of these big box stores were taking over, and it was becoming harder and harder to support the little guy, all of these different things. I can see that happening right now. Because even if we are short on workers, do you want to know why? Because like my husband went to go get a job before we moved up north, there were no paying jobs, no jobs that were willing to pay him decent amounts of money to be able to work for us to be able to afford a babysitter. Like, there was no job, hardly any. That's why we live in Northern Ontario, because they actually pay their workers here. But in Southern Ontario, there's not a lot of jobs that are offering good paying money. A $36 an hour job, he was being offered to work in a factory for $18 an hour. My husband has really good resume. He is a very strong worker. Like I've said, he has moved up where he's working right now. $18 an hour it's not even a livable wage when you have 3 kids. You might as well not be working, because the money that you would be putting into daycare would be just about, you'd have maybe money left over for your gas. And I can't imagine why our birth rate has gone down so much when, you know, the people like my friends who waited, who did the right thing, went to college, dated someone, you know, married them, and, you know, they go to have kids, they don't even have a house. How can they afford a house? You guys told them it would be okay to go and travel. How do you expect them to have kids when they can't afford a house? I don't understand how the Liberal Party was not held responsible, other than people like Rosemary Barton painting the Conservatives like they are literally Yahtzees, okay, with all of the funding that they get from the government, okay, to convince everybody that MarkCarney was going to save the day. Even when Rosemary Barton, I will say, did her job during the election, she was reamed out. So yeah, those are all the questions I would ask. Let's discuss all of the things that we can do to save the environment with that don't involve putting us into poverty. Because I bet me and however many people watch this video could come up with significantly better ideas. If we actually wanted to help the environment, one of those things would, I don't know, take taxes off of our farmers so it's more affordable to eat local. After my video of me going to the grocery store, I had to go to the market. I went to the market. I love supporting local, but all of the stuff at the market was more expensive than Walmart for the first time ever. Why? Because I don't know if they're like me, haven't gotten a lot of yield of any crops. Okay, when they have less crops, they're going to have to charge more. I understand. If it's more expensive for me to live, it's more expensive for them to live. It's more expensive for me to have a garden. It's more expensive for them to have their farm. What, can I hold it against them? No, but can I also afford to buy veggies that are that expensive? No, but then you feel really guilty. Because you don't want to shop at Walmart. You don't want to shop at Food Basics. But you have to. This is a cycle that is a very dangerous one. And, you know, I was vegan and I would never be vegan again. But I learned a lot, especially when it comes to the fact that they own all the seeds and stuff. Oh, guys. They have done so much to unbelievably mess up our farming and stuff. It's crazy. Maybe I'll talk about that in another video, have a guest on and talk about it, because I don't know exactly. I watched a lot of documentaries that were American, so I don't exactly know about Canada's system. But anyways, guys, let's brainstorm some stuff that would be better for the environment if you want. And yeah, let me know. If you had a garden, let me know. Did you have a good yield? And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.